So this is part 4 of the cheating scandal. This was the hardest one for me to make. Try not to cry.
Just pull on her hair.
Stop.
It's very infuriating. I mean, I'm standing here right now. Feel like I'm about to boil over. The video of the incident, everything happened about 2 weeks ago. Well, when I came up here, the police had already been notified and they were in Bath. The workers informed me that the young lady that was in the video pulling on my granddaughter's hair had been terminated. Their response to me was that they just found out about the video as well today. It was another employee that was recording the video. No, that employee is no longer here as well.
She said that Dr. King committed suicide. I'm like, what book is she reading? And obviously it's not the right one.
Rand Road Elementary School parent Billy Bird says those comments and more came from his 10-year-old son's substitute music teacher Friday during class. The sub singling out Nathan for his athletic clothes, saying they were marked for prison.
I think it was racially motivated from this individual. For her to say that, him having athletic attire on was going to put him in a position to go to prison, that really bothered me the most.
According to Bird, the teacher did not stop there. Nathan telling his dad the sub then started sharing her views on religion and President Donald Trump.
This lady just, started talking about if you don't believe in Donald Trump, that you're not a Christian.
The incident having Bird fighting back tears.
He liked the fact that we stood up for him. And I forgive you. I don't have no hatred towards you. However, I do feel that you should not have the ability to teach any children until you get the necessary help that you need.
He forgives.
Lesson about slavery, it felt all too real.
She told all the African American students to raise their hands and proceeded with this exercise.
The exercise was a mock slave auction. Harding's son told her he and 2 other African Americans in their 5th grade class were brought into the hallway.
She started to put imaginary chains along our neck, our wrist, and our shackles on our ankles. And as soon as she did that, Mommy, I knew it was wrong.
When they were brought back into the classroom, they were lined up. The teacher then asked other students to start bidding to buy them.
She reiterated and said, you look like a wealthy white man. How about 300? Just started a bidding with the children.
The mock slave auction of African American students happened Tuesday at the Chapel School in Bronxville. Parents are now livid and organizing.
The parents are livid and organizing.
Rock Hill Schools is now changing its tune after Fox 46 showed you video of 5th graders told to sing slave songs while picking cotton in a field. Students say it was part of a game, a lesson, not on slavery or Black History Month, but rather the Great Depression.
My ancestors picked cotton. Why would I want my son to pick cotton and think it's fun?
Before our story aired, the spokesman for Rock Hill Schools, Michael Frost, tried to stop us from running this, saying it's not newsworthy, and off camera, blaming this mom for not fully reading a permission slip which makes no mention of singing slave songs. Frost even stopped our interview when I asked why there's no mention of the history of slaves forced to pick cotton.
What did you want to say? Matt, that is not the topic of this interview. The interview is about the Great Depression. We're not going to go off script. Do you understand?
The Great Depression?
15 copies of this meme from the internet and handed them out to students during lunch. The meme, modeled after a Willy Wonka golden ticket, says N-word pass. The idea being pass holders could use the racist term without repercussions.
It's a joke that went maybe a tiny bit too far at the most, but the school blew it out of proportion.
Principal said she was, quote, deeply disappointed and appalled by what she called a racist, hateful act. Your principal called this racist conduct. Do you agree with that classification?
I do not agree.
Why is that?
No one was trying to offend anyone. No one was saying the actual word.
It's childish.
Sophomore Philip Chillicom gave the incident a 7.5 on the offensive scale.
It's something that I've been thinking about lately, and it's just been stuck in my mind. It's kind of like, it's disappointing.
3rd, 4th, and 5th graders here at Madison's Trust Elementary were instructed earlier this month to pretend to be runaway slaves advancing through an obstacle course that represented the Underground Railroad. We understand there were at least 2 black children in the class. Now, the principal has apologized, saying this was not part of the school's curriculum, calling it an insensitive physical education activity during Black History Month.
When we tell our students to be responsible for a mistake, we hold ourselves to that same standard. We made a mistake. Needless to say, I think they realize the gravity of what happened. That has been emphasized with them. Again, this was making something trivial out of something that should never be made trivial. Slavery is never a game.
That is literally the tip of the iceberg. That's not an isolated incident. We have a long-standing list of incidents of racial discrimination and inequality in Loudoun. I am headed into a meeting now, an emergency meeting with the super.
A long-standing list.
You know, this is wrong. You're talking about killing black people? That's hate.
Wasn't a good idea at all.
History assignment at Dover High School in New Hampshire.
KKK no longer followed.
2 of the students in the class choosing the KKK as their topic and changing the lyrics to Jingle Bells, using phrases like "let's kill all the blacks" and words like "grand wizards" and "burning crosses." As the students recited the song, classmates can be heard laughing in the background.
I'm sure that most of the students in the background weren't actually laughing because they thought that anything was funny about racism.
What we're trying to do is to figure out what is in this video that is a valuable lesson for our entire school community.
And that teacher is off the job with pay while the entire incident is being investigated by the school district.
What they didn't expect is to see their classmates walk in full Ku Klux Klan robes and hoods.
And the KKK walked into my kid's school on Friday, and I didn't get to stop it.
This ASU prep parent said his daughter asked him to remain anonymous, but he's upset.
Disgusted. It's wrong in any way, shape, or form. There's no justification for it.
This picture captured the scene on stage. The popular play is actually a comedy.
We can talk about racial prejudice, we can talk about the insensitivity, but to have our children put on the robes and assume the characters, it's wrong.
Now, I talked to one parent out here today who actually told me he didn't think it was that big of a deal. And he said it was because his son was Hispanic, and he said the majority of this school is actually Hispanic. I checked online, 75% of the student body is Hispanic, 11% white, 9% African American.
Notice who didn't think it was a big deal for kids to come to school dressed in Klan robes and hoods.
Should have handled this differently.
The February 4th incident started when a substitute teacher asked the 11-year-old boy to stand up for the pledge. He reportedly told the substitute teacher the flag was racist and the national anthem was offensive to black people. In a statement to the district, the substitute teacher reported telling the 11-year-old boy why, if it was so bad here, he did not go to another place to live. She said he then said, "They brought me here." And she said she told him, "Well, you can always go back."
She was wrong. She was way out of place.
The substitute teacher then wrote she called the office because she, quote, didn't want to continue dealing with him. According to the arrest affidavit, the student was arrested because he refused to follow multiple commands, repeatedly called school leaders racist, and was disruptive. They said he threatened to get the school resource officer and principal fired and to beat the teacher.
It's very graphic, it's disturbing, and we're going to deal with it.
3 teenagers, ages 14 and 15 years old, as well as a 10-year-old girl. All of them students in the Ravenna-Queens-Selkirk School District. The 4 of them accused of creating 2 videos of a school shooting scenario. The first video starts out with one of the teens saying, "I've always hated school." The sheriff says they used what's believed to be a fake gun, editing in blood and gunfire, then posting it to social media.
They were mocking like their classroom, and then they talk about racism, and then they mention the N-word a few times, and then in comes somebody and shooting them up. And then you can see the girl trying to hide, pulls the girl out, shoots her a few more times.
All 4 students were charged accordingly. They've also been suspended from school indefinitely.
They are young, but You know, so many people think, well, they're just kids. This is above and beyond being kids.
While moving the students down the sidewalk, the officer who was holding his baton can be seen pushing the student forward. When the student told the officer not to touch him, the cop responded by repeatedly asking him, "What are you going to do about it?" What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? As the students continue to walk away, he then draws his taser and says, "You want to ride the lightning?" A disturbing phrase that Vitali said seemed to have been used by the officer many times before.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, it disturbed me in and of itself. But the way he said that was like, this is a thing. Like, this is something he says all the time. Like, of course the young people will know what I mean because we're always threatening them with tasers. That's what I couldn't believe, is that it wasn't like a kind of professional thing of, you know, stop doing that or I may have to tase you. It was like this casual threat.
Just feel violated in so many ways, me and my daughter, that this even happened to her.
Last week, Makia got a phone call from her daughter saying she'd been jumped by her teacher. When she got to the school, her daughter was crying and holding 3 braids she said had been ripped from her head. Her daughter said this started after her and another classmate sprayed too much perfume in class. What happens next, we don't know for sure. But surveillance video from the hall outside class shows what happens later. And though we can't see it until the investigation is over, Makia did. And she called her pastor, Marcus Allen, to watch it with her.
Like a tall man, an 11-year-old girl being pushed from one out of the classroom to the other side of the hallway and then falling on top of her is a very disturbing sight to see.
Madison Metropolitan School District has put the teacher, Rob Mueller-Owens, on leave and said he will not return to Whitehorse Middle. Mueller-Owens, who was acting principal that day, works for the district as a positive behavior support coach, even traveling to the White House.
Suburban couple is demanding answers tonight after a chunk of their daughter's hair was ripped out. It happened during nap time at a daycare in Oswego. As our Regina Waldrop reports, DCFS has now launched an investigation.
Ariana's parents say she hasn't been the same since it happened.
She's complaining of head pain, and she's just not being herself.
Robin Reddick says she dropped Ariana off at this kindercare in Oswego Tuesday morning. Hours later, she says she got a call from the daycare saying something happened to the 3-year-old, but no emergency. She says when she picked her daughter up, she saw this.
This is how we picked her up. And you can see it's still red.
Robin says an entire braid had been ripped from her daughter's scalp.
It looked very painful. Like, I can see hair follicles, the white bulbs at the end of the tips of her hair.
Robin says Ariana's teacher and the daycare director could give her no answers, only that they noticed the hanging braid around nap time.
They should have contacted me the moment that they found out.
They don't know what happened. They don't know how it happened. There's no cameras. There's no incident report.
The couple took Ariana to see a doctor. They were told something forceful had been used on their daughter's hair. They also talked to DCFS and filed a report with police.
How does something like this happen in the care of the facility?
In a statement, KinderCare said after we became aware of the loose braid, we called the child's family. Although no injury occurred, we also reported it to state licensing, so they may look into the matter if they choose.
I just want justice for my daughter, and I just want to know what happened. I just want to know what happened to her at daycare that day.
Ariana's parents tell me all 3 of their children are no longer enrolled in this daycare. They also tell me they are considering taking legal action. Reporting from Oswego, I'm Regina Waldrop.
This one fucked me up. She's so small. Did you see? Like, all that is bald. I told you I worked at a school. I had an incident where a little girl, I miss you, by the way. She was playing with her friends and somehow, somebody stepped on her braid. They were on the floor. Somebody stepped on the braid. The braid came out. It was just one box braid. I had to call her mom and everything. I put aloe on and all that kind of stuff. But that girl felt it right away. So you sitting there telling me that y'all didn't know that her whole braid came out. That little girl was screaming, crying for her life when that braid came out like that. There's no way in the world. She's still wincing. And the parents are mad calm. Yo, I restrain from talking about this a lot because I lose my shit when I see stuff like this.
They sent the teen threatening messages on social media talking about killing him and disposing his body.
He feels bad, because he feels like he's being targeted by the school.
This woman alleges that her son was attacked by several classmates at Memorial High School after an argument. 5 white students bullied and physically assaulted a black male and claims the motive was racially charged. A group of students posted racial slurs, threats on social media towards the student before the fight.
This is what they posted, black men hanging from a tree. This is all happening by white male students.
The student has special needs and has a speech impediment. The students lured the black teen across the street and jumped him, causing a concussion. Students who are accused of jumping the African student were not disciplined.
They have separated her son, put him in ISS for the fight. The only black kid that got jumped by all 4 white kids, 5. He in ISS. None of them is in ISS.
He had just gotten into an argument with a school official and wanted to call his grandmother. Seconds later, Bruley officer Anthony Dupree, known as Kip, walks in. Some words are exchanged between the two, and as the student is walking out, the officer grabs him and slams him to the ground. They stay there for nearly a minute. You can see the officer's right arm and shoulder making jab-like movements. Officer Dupree picks the student up off the ground and throws him to the ground again. The staff behind the counter seems distraught, one of them crying and pacing back and forth. Now in handcuffs, Cipriano stands the boy up, slams him down face first on the counter, and then picks him up and escorts him out the door. The first officer, Kip Dupree, told Bruley Police Department that the teen first punched him twice. But when the Bruley Police Department started investigating and watched this video, they did not notice any punch thrown by the teen, and they said the officer changed his story, saying the teen went for his gun.
You mad yet? Are you going to do something? Are you going to stop allowing them to do this to your children? Or are you going to just let them do this and then put their book bags on the next day and take them right back to that school where they're doing this to them again?